Hey, what's going on, guys? It's TL here for our third Patreon video. So today I thought I would do something kind of cool. Hopefully you guys will think it's pretty cool. It is not involving gaming, but I'm going to tell a little bit of a story. Now, this is a story I've only told maybe like 5 people in my entire life. It's a pretty serious story. It's a real life story, something that happened to me when I was a child. That it's a little bit scary. So what I want you to do is, if it's not nighttime where you're at right now, turn the video off and come back when it's nighttime, because this story is something you should definitely listen to when it is nighttime. Trust me on this one. You're going to figure out why soon. So before I get started though, why am I telling you this crazy story? Well, I want to practice my free flow, non-scripted commentary on you guys, and it's something that I actually might want to share with the greater channel at some time. I've kind of been thinking lately anyway, how do I ever share non-gaming content on DWT? Is it appropriate? Probably not, but this particular story is something that is quite fascinating and I guess scary at the same time, and I feel like a lot of people would actually enjoy this spooky tale, especially since the leaves are falling where I'm at, and Halloween just happened, so it's quite the appropriate time, I would say, for such a creepy story. Now, last kind of aside, it's not going to be anything that's going to disturb you. Trust me, it's just kind of a childhood scare story. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and tell you my experiences near death when I was a young child. So today I take you back to the past. It is perhaps 1999 in a small hick village kind of city, which I guess that would be called a town now, wouldn't it? A small hick town in California, Northern California, where I grew up my entire life. Now, put yourself in this particular environment, if you will. Step into the shoes of me, probably 18 years ago. It is an incredibly hot summer. We live in pretty much a trailer park. This was during the time when my mom and dad split, shortly thereafter, and my mom took all of the kids. Now, we moved into this trailer because we had no money, and my mom was using it as a launching pad to commute to her new job that she got. We, the kids, there was 5 kids. We played basketball, we rode our bikes, and of course we played a lot of fucking video games. We played a lot of Nintendo Entertainment System, we played a lot of Simon's Quest, which was my personal favorite. Although now when I look back to it, the most flawed NES game on the planet. But anyway, it was a summer night. I'm going to say it was somewhere in the ballpark of probably a mid-August in the late 90s. Let's just say 1999. We're sitting on our asses, and our mom comes home, finally. We've been sitting on our asses all day playing video games by ourselves. We had no money for a babysitter. So my mom went off to work that morning, and she finally came back around 8 p.m. It was a Friday night, and she says, "Hey, we're going to go camping this weekend. Pack all your stuff." It was kind of a cheap mini vacation for poor people, by the way, because if you knew the right person in the small town where we were living in, you could actually camp for free. Mostly when you go camping, there is I think it's a camp groundsman that you have to pay, like $20 or $40 to spend the night at a national park in California, and there's always some old geezer that's sitting there for the summer in that campground, and he collects all of the money for the visitors, and he makes sure that nothing crazy goes down and that people are safe. So we knew the right people, and we didn't actually have to pay any money to go into the campgrounds where we were living, and this is somewhere in the ballpark. I want to say it was a destination called Bear River. You could look it up in Google Maps. It is a kind of a mountainous area in NorCal. It is a national park, I believe, or at least a national campground, where lots of wildlife exists, a lot of beautiful lakes and stuff, and a lot of hiking, and it's just a nice place to go camping. However, there are black bears out there. I've never seen any though. Obviously, given its title, Bear River. So we pack up all of our shit. We play some NES the night before, and in the morning, around the crack of dawn, and around 4 in the morning, my mom, who's a freaking machine, by the way, she could wake up anytime and just be right as rain. Unlike me, who I'm gonna walk around like a zombie for 6 hours if I get up at that hour in the morning. So at like 5 in the morning, she gets up all of the kids. She, literally grabs me out of bed with her. She's a police officer these days, training to be a police officer, so she's quite buff. She grabbed me by the neck and she shook me alive, per se, and I was totally zombie-sized, but eventually I wobbled my way into the kitchen and I grabbed me a bowl of generic Fruity Pebbles. We didn't have enough money to get the real Fruity Pebbles, so we had like the fruity stones or something like that. It was the generic Fruity Pebbles. So I got my one bowl of fruity stones that my mom said I could have. Couldn't have 2 bowls because we didn't have enough food for all the kids if I had 2 bowls of fruity stones. So I grabbed my shit, didn't take a shower, I was a smelly little kid, and we hopped into I think it was a 1989 golden Volkswagen van. It was the biggest piece of crap you've ever seen. Probably cost my mom like $50. It broke down all the time, but it could lug like 8 people and like 10 bags in it. So we got into the Volkswagen van and we drove off down the street, unbeknownst to me, to pick up Papa John. Now, I have never talked about Papa John, but he was a big fucking part of my childhood, and I'll say a very, very unwelcome part of my childhood. Papa John was a member of our trailer park community where we lived, and he ran a kind of a self-owned business called Jerry's Kids. Now, do me a favor and don't look this guy up because just it's kind of private, but Jerry's Kids was a foster organization where he would foster kids and mentor them as they grew up and then try to find families for them. His very first kid was, of course, Jerry. Now, this Jerry kid was kind of a creeper, I would say. Kept to himself a lot. But Papa John himself was almost our babysitter when our mom would go to work. We would go over to Papa John's house. We'd play some Ninja Turtles on his Nintendo system with Jerry, and we'd spend the day over there. Unfortunately, he was an absolute asshole, and at one point, I remember we were playing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the living room, and the volume was just too loud. And he came out, and he grabbed me by the throat, pretty much, and he dragged me to the spice cabinet, and he grabbed the cayenne pepper, and he said, "Kid, you better shut the fuck up, or I'm going to shove this cayenne pepper down your throat." No joke. This guy was absolutely hillbilly crazy. Anyway, he came with us, and we picked him up, and we put... and I think the reason that I think back to it now that he came with us is because he needed, or my mom needed, him to bring our bikes. And our Volkswagen van did not have bike racks or racks on top of the car to bring stuff. So he had a truck that we could pile all of our bikes in, and we're big on bicyclists, bicycles as kids. We had to have our Nintendo, and we had to have our bikes. Those are the 2 mandatory components for being a little young Tone Loc. So, piled all of our bikes. He drove back to our house, piled all the bikes in his truck, and we set off together on what would be the most horrific next 24 hours of my life. So, Bear River was about a 1 to 3 hour drive from our trailer park. So, at the crack of dawn, we drove all the way up there, and by the time we got to Bear River, it was the sun was just coming up. It was probably about 7:30, maybe 7 o'clock in the morning. So we pulled up to Bear River, and to get into Bear River, in California, basically there are giant highways that just go up all these mountains in NorCal. And in order to get into the campgrounds, you have to go down this turn off the main highway and go down this windy-ass road for like 5 additional miles until you hit the campgrounds. And at the campgrounds, you would then hook up with, like I said before, the campgroundsman, pay your permit, and then you could stay in the campgrounds. So the very first thing that creeped me out or made me a little bit suspicious about our trip to Bear River that night, or that morning actually, was that there were no people at Bear River that morning. Yeah, exactly. So we pulled into the campgrounds, and there was nobody. Absolutely fucking nobody. So that was the first weird thing about the trip. However, we didn't really think twice about it. And we drove a couple more miles down into the campgrounds until we got to our favorite spot, the same spot that we would camp pretty much every year. It was probably about a half a mile from the lake. And we parked the car, and I remember fondly getting out of the car and Papa John reaching into his truck and getting us our bicycles. And this is where it all starts. Like I said before, there were 5 kids, but yet my sister was very young at the time, so we only had 4 bicycles for the 4 dudes, the 4 boys in the family. So we all grabbed the bicycle, and we decided we were going to go out for a kind of an afternoon, or I guess mid-morning, bike ride. So we grabbed our bikes, and we set off down the trail, that is. We biked for probably about 5 minutes, and we still didn't see anyone. There was no one in sight. The air was crisp. It smelled of pine. You could see the water on the horizon. It was glimmering with silver, but there was just nobody. No tents, no cars, no people, no nothing. The silence was something I remember, because when there's no one around and it's very quiet, you can you could hear things more clearly. And I remember hearing the birds very clearly that morning. We ride for another half a mile or so, and we get to this clearing where we can get access to the lake, and there's a small beach there. This is where everything happened. Picture this. There's 4 kids with 4 bikes on a very tight bike trail that leads to this beach. I was first because I was the fastest bike rider in our family, because I was long and lanky and skinny. Behind me was Tom, my older brother. Behind him was Joe, my older brother as well, and behind him was my oldest brother. So there's 5 brothers. I'm first, then Tom, then Joe, and then Nicholas. Keep that in mind, because this trail that we were on was so narrow. In order to turn around, I had to wait for all my brothers to turn around first. So you have to imagine that it was basically a funnel into this beach. It was a very narrow trail. So we come around this corner, and I see something. I see a tent. For the first time all day, we see people in a tent. There was a giant tree to my left. I remember this very fondly. The trail split off, going straight into the beach, probably about 50 meters to the beach. So it was pretty close. And then to the right, the trail split off to a different section of the beach. But it was blockaded off there was like a fallen tree there. So there was only one way in and one way out. Go into the beach, or everyone turns around and goes back down the trail. But there was a giant fucking pine tree to my left. And I stop at this tree because I see something that scares me. I see 2 guys in one tent. Now this is very important to picture exactly the setup. The setup was this. There was a bright orange tent right next to the lake, and behind it was a bucket. Inside the tent was a man. Now, just the way the light was hitting the tent, it was kind of a silhouette. Whoever was in the tent, you could see the outline of the body very clearly. It was a dark black shadow because the sun was coming behind us, so the tent just lit up whatever was in it, and it happened to be a guy. This guy was doing something weird. He was bent over, and he had like a bag. I could see like a bag to his right, and he was kind of shuffling and kind of scuffling into the bag, just reaching into it to bring something out, or he was taking something out. I'm not too sure what he was doing. About 10 feet from the tent on the right side was another guy, and I couldn't make it out what he was wearing. It was some sort of, it looked like a jumpsuit. It was like a onesie that someone would wear like in a prison or something like that. I think it might have been orange actually. And he's bent over as well, but he's at the beach. The water came about 10 feet from the tent. So this guy was flushing something out of his pan. He had like a bucket and a pan, and he was bent over at the waterfront. And I don't know who made a sound, but one of us kids made like a sound. We stepped on a twig or something, kind of a movie thing, but it was real. The guy on the right turns around towards me to face me. And he, like I said, he was about 50 meters off. Maybe about 100 feet actually. So it was pretty damn close. Might even go so far to say he was about 75 feet away from me. So maybe about probably about 70 feet away from me. I didn't know how to react at first because he was wearing a hockey mask, a ski mask. Now, if you were a kid back in the 90s, you watched Friday the 13th, okay? It's a very popular scary movie. It was the exact same fucking mask. I have no idea why he was wearing this mask, but he was wearing a white hockey mask. But that wasn't the thing that actually concerned me. What concerned me was he had a fucking axe in his right hand, like a lumberjack axe. I'm not sure if he was cutting down trees or whatever, but he had a big ass axe. The tan axe with the red head, one of those big old lumberjack axes, one of those in his hand. And he kind of gesticulates something to his partner or whoever the guy was in the tent, and the guy in the tent postulates and he gets up and he stands still and then he gets out of the tent. This guy also had a hockey mask on in the same jumpsuit, and they just stare at us. The guy with the axe and the guy in the tent, who was about halfway out of the tent at this time. And here we are about 70 to 100 feet away, standing next to this big-ass tree on the trail. There's 4 kids. And we're just sitting there like, what the fuck is going on? This is really creepy. So I look back, and my brother Nick is gone. He has already left. He's already left the crime scene, dude. It's just me, Tom, and Joe. It's 3 bros. Nick is like half a mile down the trail. I'm looking in, the dust is flying up. He is gone. He is scared. He is gone. He went to tell Mom what's going on. The rest of us, the 3 of us, we're just frozen, right? Just completely frozen in time. Like, what the fuck is going on, man? I look at Tom. He looks at me. Nothing. We can't say nothing, right? The air was so silent. You could hear like an ant crawl on the ground. It was so silent. But then the guy on the right starts walking toward us. Yeah, the guy with the axe starts walking toward us. And as soon as he starts walking toward us, Joe fucking bolts. Next guy in line, right? Like I said before, I was first, then Tom, and then Joe. Joe bolted next. So it's me and Tom. I'm still frozen. Now the guy in the tent gets out and starts walking toward us as well. Reaches down in the sand near the beach and grabs something. I'm not sure what it was. To this day, I don't remember what it was. It looked like maybe some sort of knife or something, maybe an axe or maybe like a small hand axe. He grabs something that looks pretty sharp and he starts walking toward us as well. They don't run. It's just like a movie. It's so creepy. They just start walking toward us. They don't say a damn thing. They just start walking toward us. They get around 50 feet from us, and then I snap myself back into reality. And I'm like, whoa, okay, we got to go. Looking, Tom, we got to go. So he turns around. I can't, like I said before, I can't leave until he leaves because the trail is so narrow. So I'm like, get out of here, man. Let's go. He bolts. And then I turn back around after I see him go, and I'm staring at these 2 guys like walking briskly towards me with these 2 sharp items in their hands. And they're getting pretty close. They're probably about 25 feet from me, and they start walking faster. So at this time, I'm like, okay, I've woken up from the dream. I've had my senses back. I need to get the fuck out of here. Something's going down. So this is where it all happens. I had a Redline. And you can Google the type of bike this was. It was just a pretty cool kind of, leisurely bike you would buy back in the 90s. Just a straight up bike with the gears. And of course, bikes run with gears. And the gears are turned by the chain connecting both tires, right? Or connecting the axles. I don't know the anatomy of a bike. But often the chain would get caught. And if you've ever ridden a bike and the chain got caught, you know exactly what happens. The chain kind of falls off or gets shoved to the side or inwards toward the bike. And you can't use the bike. You have to cock back the wheels to give it slack. And then put the chain back on. And usually the chain's very greasy. And you know the whole story. It takes a couple seconds to get the chain back on the bike. Then you have to push the pedal forward really quickly to lock it in place. And then you can go. For whatever reason, when I turned that bike around, the chain came off. I hit the pedal so hard with my foot. I was so scared. I was trying to get out there so fast that the chain came loose. Panic mode. Thank God I reacted enough pretty fast. I got off my bike, gave it slack, grabbed the chain, put it back, pushed the pedal, lock it in, and then I fucking bolted. By this time, the guys are around fucking maybe 5 to 10 feet from me. I look back one more time. I see the axe in the air. He's bringing down the axe. The guy on the right side on the beach swung the axe to fucking kill me. Thank God I was a pretty fast bike rider. I took off, but the axe hits the back of my bike, right where the two axles connect and the seat on top, that little metal portion. I hear this ring, like this big old thud, like it vibrates up the seat and into my ears, and I get stunned for a second. I'm like, no way, this guy just tried to fucking kill me. Seriously, this is a true story. So after I come back into equilibrium, I bolt again, and I'm gone. So I race down the fucking bike trail. I'm sweating. I'm crying. I'm so scared. I almost just got murdered by an axeman. My bike has a big old dent in it, but I'm free. I'm home free. And about 20, 30 minutes later, I get back to the campgrounds. It's in an uproar. My mom is fucking crazy. She's on the phone with 911. Everyone's yelling and screaming. My mom is trying to get Papa John to fucking grab all the bikes, and she's like, we gotta get out of here. There's a fucking murder. It's complete chaos. My mom runs to me when I come in. I think I crash land my bike into the dirt. I jump into my mom's arm. I'm crying. I almost got killed. Papa John grabs my bike, puts it in his truck, and we're fucking gone. So we leave the campgrounds and we're safe. But the story doesn't end here. So we call the police. They go down to the campgrounds, and we leave the camp facility. Hours later, we get back to the trailer park we were living. And lo and behold, there was a newspaper on our front fucking porch. And just to make this point crystal clear, I'm going to have to guess what day it was, and you'll understand why in a second. So let's say it was August 15th, which just happened to be a Saturday morning. This newspaper was dated August 14th, Friday. But we didn't get it until August 15th, the Saturday. Front page of this paper. Axe murderers loose in Bear River. No joke. Apparently, just two murderers out there with axes killing people and using Bear River as their hideout. And the story went into detail of some of these murders these guys carried out. Apparently, one day, those two guys ran up to some pedestrians who were camping at, I think it was a different campgrounds. They chased these two guys to the lake of this particular campgrounds, and they swam after them. They swam the length of the entire lake, which was 3 miles. I kid you not, to chase after these guys. Eventually, they caught up to them and killed them. One of them got away and was able to tell the story, but the rest of them, they got killed. So what is the point of this entire video? If the fucking mail boy delivered the newspaper when he should have on Friday, we would have seen the fucking headline and never gone to Bear fucking River that day. And I would have never got this near-death experience.